There are some Democrats and left-leaning people who are suggesting or outright saying that America would be better right now if Donald Trump had won re-election in 2020. And it's not because they support Republicans or because they support Trump or they're MAGA. No, they're saying, hey, if Trump won in 2020, we'd probably have a Democratic president right now. And Trump from 2021 to 2025, if he were president, would not be as bad as he is right now. So I want to talk about both sides of the equation. So Richard Zoglin published a thought experiment suggesting if Trump won in 2020, it would have prevented today's scenario of Trump being back. Columnist Ed Kilgore argued that we'd be better off if Trump won in 2020 because Dems would have had a traditional primary in 2024 and Trump's campaign of vengeance wouldn't exist in the same form. Now, in 2020, Trump also was kind of running on vengeance. You know, he was complaining about Russia and all that stuff and being like, yeah, no, I'm cool, I'm special. Ukraine and Russia and all this nonsense, the fake impeachment hoax, COVID is a hoax, all this stuff. You know, he was getting ready and gearing up to really do some fascistic garbage if he got reelected in 2020. Would it be as bad as what he's doing in 2025? That's where the question really comes up. Now, there's also a big learning lesson the Democrats had to go through in 2024 in terms of, okay, look, Biden was not the guy. Biden should not have run for re-election. And the humiliation that followed as a result of that, them learning the hard way, was just brutal. It was a horrific look for the Democrats, and the Biden campaign had inside polling that showed Biden potentially losing states like New Jersey or Illinois, states that are traditionally blue, but not like super blue, solidly blue, but not like, okay, not like California or anything. So he was possibly going to lose nearly 400 electoral votes, according to some inside polling that the campaign had. So the humiliation was horrific. And I don't know, maybe it's a bit too blue-pilled, however, to say that if Trump won in 2020, we definitely have a Democratic president now, you know? Like, oh, people would rebel from Trump in 2024 and it would be a blue wave. It does seem like that would be the logical, you know, procession, basically. Like, okay, we had 2 terms of Clinton, 2 terms of Bush, 2 terms of Obama, 2 terms of Trump. And it's like, well, what comes after? 2 terms of a Democrat, or at least 1 term of a Democrat. Duh, the Republicans aren't going to win 3 presidential elections in a row. But you have to remember that Trump is totally willing to cheat and to rig elections. And even there have been arguments that that's what happened in 2024. There's still a lot of mystery around Elon Musk and what he said about, you know, Starlink and some of this nonsense. Greg Palast has done some research on it and has definitely figured out that there's some voting suppression. Whether that was determinative or not remains a question. But yeah, there's a serious question as to whether or not Democrats actually win in 2024. We can't be too optimistic and say, oh yeah, you know, everyone would come to their senses after 2 terms in a row of Trump and be like, well, you know, I guess I don't want Trump anymore. I don't want any Republican. I want a Democrat now because Trump really made Republicans look bad to me. People came back to Trump after his first term and then after him during Biden's term, throwing temper tantrums online all the time, saying stuff like it's time to terminate the Constitution, suspend all rules and regulations with respect to the Constitution in order to stamp out the voter fraud that he falsely claims happened in 2020. People saw all that. The convictions, 34 counts. I mean, him just going completely off the wall. It was no longer this kind of like playful edginess of 2015 Trump, which I don't mean to downplay how bad he was in 2015 and 2016. But again, there are degrees of awfulness. And so 2024, as many people have pointed out, it was a worse, more unhinged campaign than both 2016 and 2020. Unfortunately, he did have some strategies to kind of normalize himself. You know, he went on the podcast and all that, and he created this hero arc, this revenge and this hero arc, basically. Progressives pointed out it was a revenge arc that he's like, okay, you know, he wants to get revenge on America for not, you know, re-electing him and for, you know, punishing him for mishandling COVID. Right-wingers and MAGA types will say it's a hero arc. You know, he narrowly dodged the bullets and they tried to convict him and he took the mugshot picture on the chin and they tried to throw him in prison and that didn't work. And there was another assassination attempt against him and Biden called his supporters garbage. And so he responded with his clever garbage man stunt and the McDonald's thing. And oh my gosh, it was so perfect. It's one for the history books. He's a hero. So they got to do that obnoxious arc and you just paint him as this cool guy, totally ignore the policies, be like, yeah, no, wow, what a guy, what an arc. This man, he got kicked out of office unfairly, and now he has learned, and now he's back, and he realizes that he needs to drain the swamp and appoint a bunch of loyalist sycophants to his administration, like Kash Trash Patel. and freaking Tulsi Gabbard and Pete Hegseth. Yeah, he needs to bring in all these people, and he's learned that the neocons are bad, and the only way forward is the MAGA way forward. That's the arc that they basically claimed was happening. Now, it's total nonsense, but they were able to drum up that garbage, and now they feel justified in all of the horrible things he's doing. They feel like, oh, the Biden DOJ was bullying President Trump. Merrick Garland was bullying him, and he has licensed carte blanche to do whatever he wants now. Now, right wingers were already going to do whatever they wanted. So Trump, if he won in 2020, would have been horrendous. But would there be so much aggravation? Would there be so much, these people are so bad? January 6th would not have happened if Trump had won in 2020. Well, maybe it could have, because maybe Trump wins, but then Trump still says there was illegal voting and that he should have won by an even bigger margin against Biden. And so Trump supporters stormed the Capitol to prevent them from certifying other votes for Biden, even though Biden still lost. But that's possible. But yeah, January 6th doesn't happen. The second impeachment attempt probably doesn't happen. And so, yeah, Trump gets to kind of continue, and he probably has a little bit more political capital in the sense of like, okay, the pandemic starts to end, January 6th doesn't happen, but then you have the post-pandemic economic malaise that was really plaguing Biden, and he kept saying, oh, things are getting better, and things started to get better, but not quite fast enough for the American people. Yes, inflation went down. Yes, the cost of things started going down, but it was too little too late. And so Trump would have had to deal with that. Trump would have not provided anything for the American people. He did send out those stimulus checks, to be fair, but Biden sent out bigger checks, higher value. He didn't put his name on it, though, which Trump did, and that was kind of smart on his part, actually. Biden didn't do that because he's not super into the Machiavellian politics things. He's kind of like this backslapper who's like, I want to work with Republicans. Republicans are pretty cool, bro. I like them. They're nice and friendly, and we get along, and we make good infrastructure together. But Trump, yeah, he wouldn't pass much good legislation, really. It would kind of depend, too, if he has Congress or not. But no bipartisan infrastructure bill, no American Rescue Plan, no CHIPS and Science Act, no Inflation Reduction Act. And so Trump would have really just continued to gut environmental regulations, a lot of the social safety net, a lot of this nonsense that we see now in his second term. Although, if he were elected in 2020, he might have had a more moderate administration by that point, because he wouldn't feel like, oh, I need to get loyalists in here. He would have still had Mike Pence as his vice president. That would have been really interesting to see. Mike Pence gets a second term versus, Vance. Vance gets to be Trump's guy for his second term, because Mike Pence was kind of alienated by the fact that, Trump's supporters wanted to hang him. Yeah, that's not a very good thing to want to do to someone. So he ended up running his own campaign and doing pretty miserably in 2024, running on a mostly anti-Trump message, but also being like, we did good things in our first term, but he's not the guy in 2024. And he was unconstitutional in his behavior. So that's the upside of 2020 is, okay, we potentially have a more moderate Trump administration than 2024. But the thing is, if Trump wins in 2020, and then, he truly corrodes democracy in his second consecutive term, then it's like, how easy is it for Democrats to get in there? I mean, Republicans might, crap the bed so hard that Democrats basically get in there and have a massive mandate. But at the same time, like, what if the MAGA movement just lines up behind the next guy and is like, yeah, no, and they suppress the vote hard enough to just narrowly squeak out a third consecutive Republican victory. And so I think that if we had 2 terms of Trump followed by a third consecutive Republican victory, like say Pence wins or something, then that's worse than Trump getting his second non-consecutive term. If a Democrat wins in 2024, had Trump been reelected, we'd have a lot of cleaning up to do, because we would have had 2 consecutive terms of Trump, no doubt. Democrats, if they won the Senate or the House, would have been able to curtail some of Trump's excesses in 2020. And believe it or not, that's kind of the reason some people split their ballot in 2024. They were like, they voted Trump for president and then Democrat at the lower level, because they're like, yeah, I want to kind of curtail Trump's excesses. Ticket splitting does happen. The median American voter is kind of mysterious in some ways. But yeah, we would have had a lot to clean up with respect to the institutions. The economy would be in shambles, and it may well be in shambles at the end of 2028 and early 2029 for the next Democratic president to clean up. But yeah, and then J.D. Vance, yeah, where would he be? Where would he be? Yeah, I know he wouldn't be Trump's VP. Maybe he would still be out there saying that Trump could be America's Hitler. like he said back in 2016. So yeah, just some alternate history to entertain for you all. I do sort of understand people saying, yeah, I wish Trump won in 2020. There are some people who unequivocally say that. People on the left who are like, yeah, you know what? Yeah, we'd be done with it by now. I hear some right-wingers kind of laughing and being like, yeah, Democrats, if you just didn't cheat, then you would have Trump out by now and you wouldn't have to deal with him. But then it's like, he might try to stay in office in 2024 anyhow, so we might have a third term of Trump anyhow, even if Trump won in 2020. That would be pretty insane. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I'm eager to hear. Do you think that America would be better off if Trump won in 2020 and Democrats had more of an opportunity to get their act together? They hadn't run Biden, they hadn't suffered the humiliation? Or do you think that that's nonsense and that we don't know that a Democrat would win in 2024 if Trump won in 2020? And you think we can just stick out the rest of this non-consecutive Trump term? What do you think? Like, comment, or subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching. This is the Morris the Merrier, and I look forward to speaking to you in my next video.